Hi. Hi, everyone. It's Shannon. I see there's a couple people on chat, um, even though it's not showing that there's any viewers. But hey, it's good to be here. Hi, it's Shannon Port. And we're here today on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the energies of the Capricorn full moon that's happening on June, thinking Capricorn January, that's happening on June 27th, 28th, this coming week. And it's a big one. It's a big one. I've seen a lot of the things people are talking about, and I think it's true. This full moon is going to be it may be received as a bit heavy. You know what? I just want to take a second to see. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I got set up a little bit late. And so if for any reason you can't, it seems like you can hear me or somebody would say something, but I just want to make sure everything's working. So we're going to talk about that moon. I also want to say that last night I sent out my newsletter for June, and it was timed to go out with the solstice. Yesterday, by the way, happy summer solstice, happy winter solstice. Um, I sent out oh, great. Good to hear it. I sent out the newsletter, and the newsletter will be, what I discussed in the newsletter will be also be a big part of what we're talking about today. And so, we'll be the newsletter was called The Rise of the Creative Imagination. It's the Akashic Insight newsletter that I do. It's a peek into the Akashic vibration of what's happening on the planet, and I try to do it every month. But anyway, and also in that newsletter I announced, and I'll just say it here, that every season after every equinox or solstice, I start a 3-month round of mentoring. And so it's that time of year. And I wrote all about it in the newsletter. The newsletter is linked under in the description box. So if you just click see more in the description box, you can find the newsletter. Has all the details. It's the esoteric wisdom and the archetypal wisdom and the divine feminine wisdom that I work with, the astrological wisdom, and also if you just want to do your archetypes one day, I do single sessions too. But I work with people for 3 months to really go deeply into that material, and it's a coaching platform, so it's completely linked to everything that's happening in your life. It's very specific to you. So, but there's information in that newsletter. Also, just a reminder that we're meeting every Friday. If you're new to the video, you just clicked on for the first time every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I finally got it all together that I could do this every week. And so super excited about that because we are in the most amazing times, and I'm glad chat's working today. I mentioned it last video and the video before, but it's people are going through a lot, and changes are happening quite rapidly. And so I thought checking in every week, we'll do the moon cycles and then we'll do the energies in between, is going to be really powerful. I'd love it to be interactive. You can contact me by email. My email's in the thing. You can contact me on Facebook. You can chat, leave a question here on chat. We'll just talk about what's happening, and I'll bring in as much wisdom as I can, and you guys can bring in whatever you are aware of at this time too. It will be great. So here we are. We'll talk. This is the way the format is. This is kind of what I came up with, how we'll do it. First, we'll do an energy update. I'm just going to just let you know what I'm seeing because I work with a lot of people. I have my finger on the pulse of a lot of different things, and just kind of talk about what's actually happening, what people are feeling in the world, and energetically, emotionally, transformationally. And then we'll go into the energies of the actual moon cycle and what they mean, the astrological um, dance in the sky, the theater of life, I like to call it. And I call it sometimes archetypal astrology, light body astrology, divine feminine astrology. But we really look at these archetypes that are an extension of our psyche. They really are our psyche in the layers of who we are. And they're so beautiful. And we talk about healing our shadow. Well, these archetypes teach us our shadow. We talk about knowing our creativity. These archetypes teach us our creativity, and they work through the planets in the most brilliant and genius way. And so this week, we're looking at Capricorn. Capricorn energies are really strong right now. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and so this full moon that's happening is going to be conjunct Saturn. I mean, the moon is right on top of it. Saturn, I'm going to talk about the archetype of Saturn and Capricorn a lot because this is the collective karmic awakening and it's positive. I want to mention that it's positive. But Saturn's right there, conjunct this full moon. Saturn rules Capricorn and it rules contraction. It rules bringing spirit into matter. The archetype for Capricorn is key 15. It's the devil. Now, the devil gets a bad rap, and also Saturn in the conspiracy world and on many different platforms is considered satanic or evil, and it can absolutely be so. But what I want to say about that before we dive deeply into Saturn and Capricorn is this is what I'm seeing more and more in my life is that anything can be anything you want it to be. This has to do with us being creative, um, brilliant, creative artists in this world. If I want Saturn to be evil, it will be evil for me. If I want Saturn to be the royal manifester for me, it will be the royal manifester for me. If I want to access the higher octave, the divine side that is aligned with Shakti and the Shakti force. On the tree of life, it's Binah. It's the third Sephirah. It's the third Sephirah. It's associated with the Divine Mother, with the Holy Spirit, with Shakti, with Kali, with some of these, power hitter goddesses that birth and that bring the power of the absolute, the power of the pleroma, the power of the logos into matter. They manifest life, they manifest form, they manifest art. So in that way, Saturn is an amazing, amazing archetype to have on your side. And so we'll talk a little bit about the energy though, because there's a lot of Saturn. Saturn is retrograde along with many other planets. Mars is going retrograde right around the full moon. Jupiter's retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn as well. The energy is really slowing down. And with this full moon culminating right next to Saturn, it's like something really powerful is being seen and shown in all of our lives. This is how I'm seeing it. I'll talk personally and I'll talk about what I'm seeing. There's a lot of waves of fatigue on the planet. People are getting hit with waves of being really tired and feeling sometimes like they're kind of in a fog, like almost in between worlds. It's like the veil goes up and down and things get kind of hazy. I know for me, waking up out of my dream time, coming out, even if I take a little nap these days, it's like trying to come out of it is so it's such a heavy, thick transition because the time is standing still. Saturn governs time, and with all these planets retrograde, so much emphasis in Capricorn. Capricorn represents many of the things on Earth that are going to need to be restructured, rebuilt, regenerated, institutions, government, banking, politics, religion, so many different things. So everything's kind of coming to a stop right now with Saturn retrograde in its own sign, the sign of manifesting on Earth, and Pluto retrograde. So there's depression, isolation, some contracted energy, sometimes contraction of the heart. These things are real. I'm also seeing like a fluctuation. So there's like between amongst people who have been working and who have been doing this work for a long time. There's a feeling of also mastery that's coming in because Saturn, this is so brilliant. Saturn is also the planet of mastery. Saturn is also the great teacher with a capital T. So this is what I mean when I say that everything is what we want it to be. And so when we see Saturn in that way, we understand that this energy can teach us and can it initiates us because it's the divine mother energy and it can bring us into our full mastery. We need Saturn for ascension. We absolutely need Saturn for ascension. So One of the things that can help so what I was going to say is that people are getting great bursts of, "Oh my god, we made it. We're here. We're in the new earth," or "I'm creating what I wanna create," or I've got things going on in my life." This is important. You're feeling like one day it seems like you've really finally become who you want to become, or you've healed what you want to heal, or your relationships are working out and you feel like you're making progress. And so, we're getting those hits and those bursts of that energy, and I talked about it in the Gemini new moon and also the solstice energy. And then sometimes all of a sudden a wave will come in really strong, and it's almost like it's trying to undermine that process. Yeah, exactly. I have times where I feel like I'm just gonna fall asleep, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Someone said, "You could feel like you could just want to take a nap right now." I'm telling you, I have times when I have to do a call, have to do a video or something, and I feel like this wave comes where I'm just gonna pass out right there. Yeah, it's that kind of energy. But what's happening is we get these waves of all of a sudden darkness or isolation or fear or, "Wait a minute, I was mistaken. I'm not good enough. I don't know what I was thinking, or what is it all for? Like, why are we here? Wait a minute. Yesterday it seemed like everything made sense. I finally had the right consciousness, and all of a sudden today or even an hour later, there's a wave that comes in that it's just like we have it slows us down and we have to sit and feel and process. What I think is happening in my own experience, what I'm seeing as someone who's been doing this for a long time, is that we're revisiting, especially with Saturn retrograde, because Saturn is our karma. And I want to define karma in just a moment. But we're seeing the remnants and the final layers of things that need to come up. And the deepest ones, the last layers, are the strongest. The most hidden layers are the ones that are going to shock us the most. I know I've been seeing it in dreams lately. Like, dreams were really pure, really high astral for a long time, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's like back in the underworld again. It's we are fluctuating within our own God self. We each our are our own creation and our own microcosm. So within our own creation, we're cleaning up and we're exploring our underworld and deciding we're being tested by ourselves. Nobody on the outside can ever initiate us or test us. All tests come from within. We each have our own divine mother. Saturn is working with that energy. And so vulnerability can be huge. Oh, I love it, Anya. That's great. Well, yes, that's there's a message in that, big one. So, if you were talking about Saturn in the 3rd grade, it's yes, so I'll return to that. Here's what can do it. I just wanna offer this because this is a platform where I wanna kind of share some things, and I actually even jotted down a couple mantras. Oh, yes. Know that it's I am enough. I am enough. There is enough for me. I am enough, and there is enough for me. And it's very simple, but understanding that the dark side of Saturn will make us feel isolated, alone, unworthy, like we've messed everything up. Like Saturn is when you have a lot of Saturn in your chart, which I know some of you do. Saturn is all or nothing. And when I first really studied the archetypes, I was taught by some master energies. And the first thing I learned about Saturn is that Saturn is all or nothing. And I see it now when I work with people who have a lot of Saturn in their archetypes, in their whether it's their natal or their kabbalistic or some of the other ways of looking at the archetypes, which is what I do. If you ever want to do that personally, you can look me up. Um, when you see that, when you see people with Saturn, and this is how I was taught and I've observed it, Saturn will either bring you down and you'll have a lifetime where you're learning about being a failure or learning about being someone who's really not in the game, not in the game of life, someone who's not participating or sitting out or really, really contracted. And there's lessons in all of this. So there's no shame in any of that. It doesn't mean it can be transmuted. Or people with Saturn will also On the light side of it, will become powerfully driven in a spiritual way, in a good spiritual way, not in the sort of like counterfeit spiritualities we're seeing, or the sort of falsified, like, trendy, but more, but the depths of the real wanting to know and wanting to work it out inside themselves so that they can give it to others. And that's why Saturn rules teachers and spiritual teachers. It's said that most all great um, spiritual teachers have a huge placement of Saturn. I've witnessed this as well. Um, but Saturn works like that. And so if you have Saturn, or if you feel when the energy of Saturn is on you, get grounded, um, have a little structure, but this is different than control. And I'm thinking of one of you whose video I saw about control was quite beautiful. It's not about control. It's not about struggle, and it's not about forcing something. Saturn is about creating containers and giving something a little structure, being a little bit disciplined, and just saying, I'm going to make this container. I'm going to do this every day, but not being overly a disciplinarian on yourself, but just understanding the creative act. And so know that you're enough, and know that there's enough. There is enough. And I want to mention, because a lot of people are coming into their work right now. And I work with a lot of my mentor, participants and coaching clients are manifesting who they are in the world. And when you first get out there, it's like, oh, wow. At first, you go out there running out there and it feels so great, because you get that initial momentum of, I'm here, I've made it, I'm here to do the work I've come to do. And the universe gives you all this help, because it's like it's beginner's luck in a way. Once you start, you get momentum. And then as you're out there, you start to look around, and that's when the self-doubt can come in, and that's when low self-worth can come in. That's when we can make a few mistakes. The mistakes are good because we learn from them, but this is Saturn. And so always, the way I'm approaching it is just know that there's enough. There's enough for everybody, and there's room for everyone in this world. I wrote about this in The Rise of the Creative Imagination. We are going to be, many people are going to be coming into their gifts and really rising up onto this platform, because think about it, there's billions of people on this planet. We have over 7 billion people on the planet. I mean, I don't know, is it 8 yet? I don't know. I haven't checked recently, but there are a lot of people that are going to need to be served. And so just know that whatever you're doing, if it's coming from your truth and your love, your desire to keep going, keep creating, keep learning, you will reach the people that you're meant to serve. You will collaborate with the people you're meant to collaborate with, and everybody will have their moment. It's very important for us, because actualizing into matter, it's important for us to have our individual self as well, and to realize who we are, and to have that moment of being a star, because we all are stars. We're all suns. That's the truth, is that the soul is exploding into being a supernova. The soul is really coming into its light. And it's not just for people in Hollywood. It's not just, we all have that moment of being seen and also seeing. So, all right. The universe has a place for you. So be in your step. Know who you are. Find your place in life and create, create, create. So let's look at karma. Let's talk about karma, because this full moon is, and most of the things that I've seen here and there are saying it's very heavy, very draining, very much bad karma. I want to talk about the positive karma and the awakening of human consciousness right now. And so this is about the positive collective karmic awakening, because collectively we're experiencing this as well. Let's talk about karma. Let's define karma. Then we'll look at a couple of the archetypes of it before we jump into the moon. So karma is our words, it's our actions, it's our perception, and it's our vision. There's a lot of teachings now saying karma is not real. It was all the archons that told us there's karma. There really is no cause and effect. There is no karma. Not quite true. The universe has a system of balance so that we can learn, and we don't need to learn because we're bad. We don't need to learn because we need to get punished. We don't have something come back to us because we're so evil and bad that we did it in the first place, and now we have to learn and experience it and just sink away in our own negativity. we we have the reason things come back to us is so that we can create and learn from them, and that's what our karma is. It's that what we send out, we as gods and goddesses want to know what that does. We want to have an understanding of our own creations. And so when we send things out, they mirror right back to us in different. Saturn governs time. And so they come back to us in time. There are different timelines, and we're constantly accessing different timelines. This is what Saturn is about. How you use Saturn will determine your timeline and what you're on. I know, I'll share with you this in my work. I jump timelines all the time, and I see, and my focus has become very powerful because of being in this kind of work for many, many years, understanding the archetypes, the esoteric wisdom, working with myself, other people. So it's my focus is strong. It's built up power. And so where I focus, instantly that thing becomes alive for me. And there's times when I've had to really focus on some of the negativity, and I mean, go to the depths of darkness to understand why it's here, to understand what my relationship is with it, to understand how it's affecting clients, groups I teach, people everywhere, my peers, my colleagues, and just the children of the world, our brothers and sisters. So I've gone into it, but I can say without a doubt, when we access something, it's that quote. I've said this quote before, but when we stare into the abyss stares back at us, and that's an absolute real principle of one of the laws of creation. And so and even yeah, even um even when we're doing good work, and even some of the higher consciousness, which would be considered that the what are some of the spiritual words? The communion of saints, or the esoteric, the ascended host, the raised consciousness of humanity. It's that collective of souls that have ascended, and it's really our own collective higher self. But there are humans, avatars, and people who have come before us who have ascended into that. Actually, avatars are coming beyond that. The avatar consciousness is even higher. But this great ascended consciousness has is even for themselves has to be careful about how deeply they look into the dark that's happening on earth. And for that reason, sometimes things get a little bit tricky in how we're receiving help from our brethren, in that because when you stare at it, it starts to manifest where this is such a creative universe. And so the the lesson there is just, oh, and I wrote about this in the newsletter. Be aware of it. Be aware of the programming. Be aware of the engineered social games. Be aware of the mess in politics. Be aware of all the deception. Be aware of the AI. Be aware of the the fallen sexuality that's really kind of trying to take over a certain way, and in all the manipulations that are happening. Be aware of it. Be smart and be aware of it, and then use it. That's how Saturn is best, when you're aware of it, but then you take it as creative material to build up and to create something new. It's like we recycle it and build up. The momentum behind human consciousness when we do that is tremendous. The waves of human consciousness that can be started that way from one person that's been living in poverty their whole life, that's been, that maybe in their 80s or 90s, that's been living in a shack out in the middle of nowhere, can make the decision. And I'm using this as an example, meaning it doesn't matter if you're privileged, it doesn't matter how much spirituality you've studied, it doesn't matter what your pedigree is or what background you come from. It's only an alignment in your heart that's going to that the grace will rain down on you, and you'll create this. So this, we're getting to the moon. The planet's a little bit late, but this is all about the moon. And we will get to them. I'm going to try not to go too much later. Karma is our words and our illusions and our perceptions. This is key 15. It's the devil. The devil shows us the main esoteric teaching of the devil is perception, perception, perception. Perception is everything. You want to change the world, change your perception of it. See what needs to be seen. It's not about denial, but it's about perception. The artist creates the reality. I work with a lot of visionary artists, and as I mentioned in the last video, performance artists, all across the spectrum of art, entrepreneurs, even, I work with even a lot of CEOs and people who wouldn't be considered traditional right brain kinds of artists, but it's art. Anytime we create, we're accessing art and we are putting our perception into the world. When you access your own perception, your own gift, and you put it forward, nothing can stop you. The lessons that come will teach us. Let's say we when we're meant to make mistakes, we make I can say my the greatest gifts have come from the mistakes I've made in my business, in my life, in my friendships, huge mistakes. And but now it's to the point where the learning curve is much quicker, and once you learn from it, you can correct it, and it's more material to a lot about, some of the substance and the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. I talked about the dragon's head, the dragon's tail in the newsletter. It's about Venus. It's about some of the alignments of creativity. This is all about art, and so you can find more on that there. You stop time when you understand Saturn. So this moon is going to stop time. A full moon is a culmination. And the moon is at 6 degrees. 6 is the lovers. 6 is sacred union. 6 is ascension. I mean, 6 is basically the union of water and fire principle, and it's at 6 degrees. That always says something, the degree of the moon. The full moon is at 6, Saturn's at 5. I love it. Okay, so here's the devil. We'll go a little deeply into the archetypes. The devil is ruled by the word because 5 through the 1 is Mercury, and 5 is the power of communication. So in the number in these esoteric teachings, the 5 is working through the 1. So the 5 is showing that the way we speak is everything. The way we speak is our vision, and our vision is the way we speak. So Saturn is at 5, which is beautiful and brilliant. And 5 is it's the Hierophant, the inner teacher. It's also Mercury. These are the laws of correspondence that I work with the archetypes, and they're an entire esoteric language that is art. It really is the art of creation. Um, so Key 15 also, it grounds is the devil grounds things, meaning that force within us that contracts and brings it in through our perception and our words. I'll leave it at that. So the devil is Capricorn. That's how it's the correspondence to set to this podcast is that the devil, key 15, is the sign of Capricorn. Key 21 is the world. It's cosmic consciousness, and that really is the archetype of Saturn. Saturn in its height is the great teacher. It's the great ascended human being, and it's cosmic conscious and mastery. It's the cosmos. Saturn birthed the cosmos, and Saturn will give you mastery over the cosmos. So when we look at key 21, that's another correspondence for Saturn. And so just know, and it's 21 reduces to 3. 3 is divine creativity. Anything with a 3 is pure creative power associated with Jupiter, associated with the Empress. And the Empress is the fertile imagination that I wrote about yesterday. So Saturn is the universe that holds us accountable. And so yeah, we are accountable for our actions, and that's karma as well. The accountability is huge. If you want to be a master, you've got to be accountable for what you say. In fact, this is how it works when you have high Saturn. Everything you say, when you become a teacher of spiritual teachings, and I know a lot of you that are attracted to this platform and my work are on that path, you become accountable for everything you say. And the reason is because your sphere of influence begins to increase, and you start to affect people not on the superficial programming level, but you're going into their heart and you're entering into their stream when they allow you in deeply. And when you teach something, teaching is governed by justice. It means that you have to always be responsible for what you say. It doesn't mean you can't be honest. It doesn't mean you can't be open and free flowing, but we have to understand that every word we speak carries a lot of weight. And so when we speak something carelessly or negatively, or when our wound comes up or when we're triggered, we feel that immediately. And then we look at it, and then we do what we need to do to make it right. We create something, we do something, and we pick up our momentum again. Saturn, more Saturn energy. Okay. We never truly understand another person's path. And this is important to know with this full moon. We never know what another person is going through. I see so many conspiracies and truth tellers that are really out to do good in the world, but that are ripping people apart. And I mean, just putting people down in ways. And if you listen to that long enough, you'll start to believe the things you hear. We need to be able to tell the truth. We need to be able to reveal things if that's your calling and lift the veil. But if you really want to make a difference, don't play on the same playing field with the force that would rather us all stay in bondage. If you play on their playing field, they will win every time. And I've seen examples of this. If you start to go in and try to act disrespectfully, act hatefully, act, you're then on their playing field. And if your soul isn't truly meant to be there, you'll get eaten alive, or you'll learn your lesson and keep coming back. Let's be truth tellers, and let's get let's raise this planet up. Let's bring our collective karmic awakening into the light. And I like what you said, Wendy. Um, yeah, a mirror which requires light. Exactly. Be the light out if, and I hope that's what you meant. Yes, to the mirror which requires light. Give out light. It's not a naive light. It's a known light, and I am enough light. There's enough for everyone light. I give my gifts light. That kind of light. Be an example and just ask yourself, what would I want people to give to me? That's the best way I've ever used to correct my own missteps. If I'm feel like I'm feeling self-righteous about something, or if I feel like I'm entitled to something, or I need to take a stand on something, my new thing is, if I was in that person's position, what would I want? When you come from that, what would I want from them? If I had really screwed up, if I had done something really disrespectful, if I had taken something, if I had, just been careless or not kind, if I was in that role, or when I am in that role, what would be the most generous person somebody else could do for me? And when we do that, sometimes it is to just be straightforward. Straightforwardness is brilliant and beautiful. Sometimes it calls for not mincing words, but being straightforward. But it will keep us on check, and that's good Saturn light energy, to keep us in check, to know that we can always give back something higher that might change that person's life for good. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned recently. Um, on another level. And that is where forgiveness comes to. When we act towards others the way we want them to act towards us, we see our own inner child and we see what we've done, and we have so much mercy on ourselves. And this is how we're going to heal ourselves. This is our karmic awakening. Heal, forgive, create, give out light. All right. The people have the power. Let's look at the moon. Positive sides of this are steadfast, reliable, constant, grounded, stable, solid, space, creating in space. The moon, we already said it's conjunct. Mars is retrograding in right at the time of the full moon. Mars begins to retrograde in Aquarius. I talk about this in the newsletter, so I won't go into it too much. But in Akashic Insight, the Mars is going retrograde in Aquarius. This is the age of Aquarius. This is the age of the heart. Mars, the energy that's created war, competition, greed, the versions of sexuality that just burn us up and eat us up. It's the negative Shakti force. It's when Mother Shakti is going way down, and is harnessed in that negative way, because she goes both ways, and it's all the same energy. But when it's going in that direction, we've got too much of that direction that has created the situation we have. And some people love to ride that wave down, because when you're on it, it feels like you're getting everything. When you're like living in the fast lane and taking from other people and creating wars and winning wars, it can feel like you're on top of the world, but that's the little world. It's not the big world like in cosmic consciousness. That's the little world that's going to fade away. And that can be fun for a while. But as Saturn will teach us, eventually we have to face our creations. And that's when we get to start the ascent. Yes, create love amidst pain, create joy amidst suffering. The nodes are moving into Capricorn and Cancer. This is big. We'll talk more about it, but they've been in Aquarius and Leo. So powerful. This summer, massive eclipses. I need to start to wrap this up, otherwise it won't go through the YouTube stream if they're too long. So here we'll talk a little bit more. Does anybody have any big questions? If you do, you can write it out. I'll try to get to it. And perception is everything at this moon. Rewrite your perception in an artistic way. Create it. What do you want? Create it. Forgive yourself for everything that you feel like you've done wrong. Oh my God, if I could write things, chapters in my life that I wish I could make disappear. And then I look at it and think, wow, but that's where everything came from. that was the well that gave to my creativity at different stages. I've had different levels of creativity in the different chapters, but I think that's it. So just looking at the energy, let me think. There's a lot of retrograde planets. Um, Jupiter is in retrograde in Scorpio, rewriting sexuality. So our planet is getting kind of a new download there. Um, oh, thank you. Thanks. And I think they'll get better and more refined as we go because there's a lot. We're finding the rhythm in these too. Um, where I can knock them out a little quicker. So Jupiter, remember, sexuality is huge right now. And also Venus is going, oh, I know, Venus in Leo squaring Jupiter right at the full moon. So Venus square Jupiter, that's huge creative energy. When Jupiter's retrograde, when Venus and Jupiter square, it means there's an abundance. It's Venus is art and pleasure and joy. And when Jupiter's squaring it, it's saying, let's get it on, let's do it. And so a lot of creative energy. Things will be revealed because it's a full moon. Things are going to be happening on the planet. I mean, we're rewriting everything in this next year or two. It's been happening, gaining momentum. Things are going to be rewritten. And so do you want to be one of the people rewriting it, or do you want to be one of the people taken down by it and just overwhelmed by it? Be one of the people rewriting it, because there's so much room on that train. I'm telling you, not as many people are on it as you think. And so, all right, I'm going to start to close it out. I'm not sure what the next video will be, but remember, every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can subscribe to the channel. You'll get updates. Visit artofthefeminine.com. I've got some stuff going on there too. Also, just starting Instagram. I haven't really done it. I've a huge platform on Facebook. There's like almost 100,000 people, but Instagram, just starting to build it up because it's quick and easy. So if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm there. And also if you're interested in the coaching, check it out. I love the new people that are coming in. It's amazing. That being said, wishing you a beautiful full moon in Capricorn, and feel free to contact me about anything if you have any questions. And that being said, I will see you again next week.